Welcome to the Flynn Brothers podcast. I'm John.
And I'm Jimmy. Today's big idea, The Office versus 30 Rock.
We discuss some of the great sitcoms of the 2000s, then single out The Office and 30 Rock as the most era-defining.
Later, we pit the two shows against each other in a variety of categories to see which one reigns supreme.
Finally, Jim tests my knowledge with a little Office and 30 Rock trivia.
It's all coming up. But first, here's the Solons.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. 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 Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
All right, let's wind the clocks back. I don't know. 20 years, shall we, to kind of the mid-2000s. Mentally, can you do that okay? What's going on for you in the mid-2000s?
I'm listening to 50 Cent. I'm wearing long jean shorts.
You're about 11 years old. Good. So, yeah, mid-2000s, as we were doing the research for this podcast, I was kind of pinpointing it as sort of the era when sitcoms began to change. You know, we were in sort of this post-Seinfeld, post-Everybody Loves Raymond era where we were kind of in sitcoms getting away from the laugh track. We weren't doing that as much. Did you kind of, when you were young, get that sense, or not until we were kind of doing the research for the podcast and looking back, did you get that sense that, kind of during this era, sitcoms are going away from the multicam laugh track style?
Well, our parents took away cable television from us, so we were big network TV guys.
Right. We
always
were,
have
we were,
been.
yes.
So we were well-versed in your Everybody Loves Raymond, in your
Right.
Seinfeld. And then you saw these new wave of sitcoms, and it's like, there's something different about this show. This one feels more real, and I don't know if I necessarily processed it at the time, but there is this phoniness, obviously, to the classic 3-camera sitcom. You're aware that the characters are on a set. You're aware that there's a laugh track, or if there's a studio audience, which again is this sort of fake thing again, but there was a shift to, let's kind of get away from that sort of stuff. Let's go a little bit more onto like a seemingly real location and try to capture more of a slice of life as opposed to just these situations that these characters find themselves in.
Yeah, the mid-2000s showed the shift from, like you were saying, the multicam sitcom to the single-cam sitcom. And that brings us to shows like The Office, like 30 Rock, like Curb Your Enthusiasm, like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And then later you get Parks and Rec, you get Modern Family. And, I think, it kind of just reached a point with the multicam sitcoms, and it even is still an issue today, where the audience is just kind of hip to it, especially the television audience. You just kind of know the beats. You know that they're goosing, okay laugh lines with huge laughs, right, in the editing suite with the laugh track. And there's a great thing, too, about these single-camera sitcoms, particularly The Office or Curb, in contrast to, say, 30 Rock, where without the laugh track, you could really let these silences linger, and you could really use the silences for comedy. And that's something that often, if you have a laugh track or you have a multicam sitcom, you kind of just don't have that luxury. It's kind of just a missed comedy opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, you're just so focused on the laughs per minute and keeping that laugh track hitting, making sure that there's no lulls or dips in the freneticness of the action, whereas with these other shows they leaned into this cringe comedy.
Yes.
You would say these moments where the audience is meant to squirm, and that really builds the tension for these big laughs that come later.
A show we love that not a lot of people know about of kind of our age group and younger is the Larry Sanders Show, which was written by and starring Gary Shandling. It was on in the 90s, and it was an HBO show that was really the precursor to Curb and The Office and 30 Rock and so many of these great sitcoms that have come after it. And a lot of these shows really owe a debt of gratitude to it. I think Curb, Arrested Development, all these shows in that era that we grew up with that we really loved, Curb especially, like I think next time we do a sitcom versus episode, we got got to do Curb versus Seinfeld, because that'd be a wonderful one.
Absolutely.
Larry David's two opuses, if you will. But today we're going to focus on The Office versus 30 Rock, two shows that were on NBC kind of from the mid-2000s to the mid-2010s. They aired back-to-back frequently on Thursday nights, and you always kind of watch them together, and they were both great shows. They were both kind of duking it out for like best comedy on TV. 30 Rock always struggled in the ratings. Office initially struggled with the ratings, but then kind of grew and, aired after the Super Bowl and got super popular. But I don't know. How have you always thought of these two shows as kind of existing together? Do you think they're sort of enemies? Or are they frenemies? What do you think when you look back on these two shows?
Well, it's the classic heartland America versus the coastal elite sort of duality. I think The Office really testified to a lot of, everyday American type concerns, and then 30 Rock provided this escape. Even though a lot of those same concerns were still there, it's like, wow, we're in New York City, and we're on the set of this TV show, and there's these big stars, and there would be celebrity cameos that would come in. And so I thought they really complemented each other well. Like, The Office is a perfect show that goes first. It wouldn't make sense for The Office to have come second in the lineup, because 30 Rock had a little bit more edge. There was a little bit more zaniness and
jokes per minute.
Yeah, felt more like a late night show, whereas The Office is more like kind of a prime time sort of fixture.
So, fans of this podcast, lovers of our versus style episodes will know we're going to put these two entities up against each other through a variety of categories. And in the end, as we said at the intro, we will decide which one reigns supreme, which sitcom reigns supreme, The Office or 30 Rock. Let's go to our first category. Our first category is the cast. So the cast of The Office. Everyone knows Steve Carell as Michael Scott, Rainn Wilson, John Krasinski, Jenna Fisher. Great, great cast. I mean, you really have kind of this star in Steve Carell who went stratospheric in between season 1 and 2 when 40-Year-Old Virgin came out, and he was really the star of the show. And then you had these kind of unknown actors who were really believable in their roles. Like when you would watch The Office, it worked so well that they cast unknowns, because you're just like, these people are these characters, right?
Yes. No, I'm sure John Krasinski was called Jim thousands of times. Jenna Fisher, Pam. And I think that's a really critical point of it, is that that's what helped you believe in the world of The Office, that not only they got these unknowns, but they're really, really talented character actors. I mean,
Yes.
Rainn Wilson, he really hand in glove with Dwight, but a lot of the stuff that he would do with that character was, uproariously funny, and also like shot through with a ton of like pathos, emotional currency and weight to his character, who is frankly a buffoon and nerd.
And I think Jenna Fisher, John Krasinski, their portrayals, they just felt like people you knew. They just, if you had ever been in love or had been in sort of, a forbidden romance, it can't work, or a workplace thing, or, with a classmate or whatever, like it was just so relatable, it's such a relatable dynamic they had. And I think, the cast, you could go on and on about all the supporting players, but I really think that was the strength of the cast, is just the chemistry, and these people were believable as the characters. Whereas with 30 Rock, we look at the cast of 30 Rock, it's Tina Fey, Alec Baldwin, Tracy Morgan, Jane Krakowski, Jack McBrayer. You had Tina Fey, who was already a big star from Saturday Night Live. You had Alec Baldwin, who had a very good film career, wasn't exactly a movie star, but like had been nominated for like an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, had done big movies like Beetlejuice and stuff like that. It had been a big player, Glengarry Glen Ross. He'd had kind of these memorable moments in movies. He had never like been a big star and like had a big hit as a movie. But then you also had Tracy Morgan from SNL. You had Jane Krakowski, that's going to keep happening, who was on Broadway and, nominated for Tonys and stuff. Jack McBrayer was, kind of the utility player. Of all these actors, though, the only one who would have been cast on The Office who would have been like unknown enough was probably Jack McBrayer. All these other four were just too big of stars, weren't they?
Yeah, and I think that is the difference between The Office and 30 Rock. 30 Rock sort of takes the Gary Shandling, Curb Your Enthusiasm route of playing sort of a heightened version of yourself.
Right.
It feels like, or Alec Baldwin's maybe playing an alternate universe version of himself. Right. Whereas The Office was these actors taking these very human feeling characters and bringing them to life. But yeah, I think just you took the star power of 30 Rock, and these people, you would not buy them as regular average Joes. You buy them as big time players in New York's entertainment scene, and they really just bring it to life really well.
Something that's interesting with The Office is, for me, when I look back on the show, the most memorable scenes are these group scenes, like when they have a meeting. Obviously, you know, many consider it the best Office episode, dinner party. When you have all these characters together in kind of a pressure cooker environment, and the dialogue is just ping-ponging, and everyone gets a line in. Creed gets a line, Kevin gets a line, goes back to Michael, Jim gets a line, Dwight gets a line, Jim looks at the camera, Pam gets a line. Like, those are the scenes that are really crackling. Whereas with 30 Rock, you can kind of just put two of these characters in a room together, like, you know, Liz Lemon and Jack Donaghy, Tina Fey, Alec Baldwin, and then just have them talk for like 2 minutes, and it's great. So it's kind of interesting. The wattage, the star power of 30 Rock really lent itself to, yes, they had great group scenes, and, you know, they had good writers' room scenes and stuff like that, but for the most part, it was kind of like just a couple of them in a scene together, and it would have that Shandling style where, okay, maybe it's a walk and talk, and Tina Fey talks with Tracy, and then, you know, talks with Jenna, and then, right, but it's mostly just kind of two characters existing, whereas The Office, I think, was really served by everyone in the room together.
Yeah, tons of like character-based humor. I think The Office had less like actually written jokes. It was just what this character would say in this crazy environment situation, which made it really feel lived in and believable. Whereas 30 Rock, these people are in a show, but they're also comedians. The characters they're playing are their comedians, so they have license to straight up write jokes. And then 30 Rock would also do these cutaways to just sight gags or, you know, 3-second jokes as well, that would just amplify the humor of that show.
There was something interesting about 30 Rock, which we've talked about before. The characters are comedians. So in The Office, when characters are funny, it's kind of unintentional. Like, Michael, a lot of the time, it's just putting his foot in his mouth. Or these characters, like you said, it's like, we know Dwight's a nerd. Dwight says something nerdy. Ha, ha, ha. Whereas there are lines Tracy will say in 30 Rock that sound like he's being buffoonish, but then you remember, oh, he's a comedian. Maybe he's just deliberately saying something buffoonish in order to be funny. So there was kind of this blurring of the line of like, is this character that blasé, that ignorant, or are they just a comedian being funny?
Yeah, I think both shows, too, blur the line between, is this real, is this fake, because you know, The Office is obviously a mockumentary, and 30 Rock is a show about a show. So as opposed to the traditional sitcom where you're well aware that you're watching something that is fake, this is like, well, I know this is fake, but gosh, it feels so real, and it knows it's fake, so that makes it more real. There's just a really delicate interplay between what is the reality of the show and like what is the reality of the world within the show.
Let's get into a versus within a versus. Let's talk about Steve Carell versus Alec Baldwin. That was always the big sort of Emmys conversation. Alec Baldwin would always win the Best Actor Emmy. Steve Carell would always lose to him. And what do you think when you look back on sort of their two comedic styles and their two performances of Steve Carell as Michael Scott and Alec Baldwin as Jack Donaghy? How do you sort of summarize and kind of compare the two performances?
Feels to me like Alec Baldwin won class president every year. Like, he just has this star power charisma about him. His line deliveries are like what you would teach at an acting school. There's so much, too, that's a nod and a wink to the entertainment industry, which obviously award shows do like having. Like, they like being sort of lampooned or celebrated in some way. And I think that Steve Carell, on the other hand, didn't feel like he was acting.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like,
I agree with that.
He was just so in the skin of this Michael Scott character that I think people sort of forgot that there's a guy there, that Steve Carell is not like Michael Scott, as we've seen in his post-Office career.
I think in the post-Office career, to your point, like he's a very good actor, but there are times like when you watch, you know, Foxcatcher or any of his dramatic work where he's very good, but you do feel him pressing a little bit. You just feel like he's really stretching his muscles. Whereas the portrayal of Michael is just effortless. It's Steph Curry shooting a three-pointer. He put a lot of work into it, but as it's being presented to you, it just looks completely effortless. And yeah, it's interesting. I almost wonder sometimes if, the conversation was always Steve Carell versus Alec Baldwin. I wonder if really the conversation should have been Steve Carell versus Tina Fey, because those are really the main characters. Those are really the protagonists. I think 30 Rock has a much more clear protagonist in Tina Fey. It's really Liz Lemon's journey, and can she be this like career woman and have it all, family and everything. Whereas The Office, it's just The Office is kind of the main character, and sort of there's the boss, and it's not like Jim's the main character, Dwight's the main character. I guess it's Michael, right? But then it's like, well, the show went on for 2 seasons without him. So there was this kind of main character problem, I guess you'd say. But I don't know. I guess it's Michael's the main character, you'd say?
Yeah, he's sort of an anti-hero, I guess.
Yeah,
he often learns from his mistakes or his overstepping the bounds or being too egotistical. But yeah, I think just there really isn't a one-to-one comparison that you can make for Tina Fey on The Office. It'd be like if BJ Novak and John Krasinski were the same guy. Like the creative control of the writing that she had, while also offering herself up to so many jokes, where she is the butt of the jokes. She is always the person who the other characters are slamming down. She almost never has the status in the scene, which I think is just so selfless too. As the creator and head writer of the show, you could really put yourself in a pride of place in the program.
For sure.
We've seen plenty of shows that do this sort of thing where the writer-creator is actually like the coolest, sickest guy in the world. And instead, she just really sacrifices everything for what will make the funniest show.
Well, let's ask ourselves. We've been complimentary toward both. Who has the better cast, The Office or 30 Rock? What would you say?
I'd say the cast, if you're on paper, it's 30 Rock in terms of the star power and talent, but the way that they fit together, I think it's hard to argue with The Office.
You go better cast, The Office?
Oh, God. Well, I was sort of doing a mealy-mouthed both and sort of situation.
Well, let's if you think it's a tie,
I think it's 30 Rock. I think 30 Rock had the better cast.
30 Rock. I would agree. I would say where The Office has the advantage is in the super ancillary characters. As you start getting to the Oscars, the Creeds, the Tobys, I think those are a little more strong than perhaps some of the like Lutz is very funny in 30 Rock or Grizz and .com. But a lot of these characters are a little more one joke, whereas a lot of the side characters, even Creed, like a guy who has one line that's unbelievably funny per episode, is pretty well rounded. I could tell you all these things about how he's in a band and how he has all these fake identities and he's a wanted criminal.
Mung beans sprouting in his drawer.
Mung beans, all these things, right? That are very, very specific. So I do think with the ancillary characters, as you go further into it, it's The Office. But I think we got 2 votes best cast for 30 Rock. And our wonderful producer, I think, will help us keep score here, Will Slade. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to the next category, the characters. So with The Office, we have, of course, as we've talked about, Michael Scott. I'll ask you this. Is Michael Scott arguably the greatest sitcom character of all time?
Yes, 100%. I think he can anchor a show from so many different perspectives. It could be a love story with Michael.
Yep.
It can be him trying to save the day. It can be him ruining the day. It can be him trying to save the day after ruining the day. He can be the hero of an episode. He can be the villain of an episode. He makes you feel so many things, and I think it is because of his naked, humiliating desire to be loved and accepted.
Yes, that is, we talked about how with the Tina Fey, Liz Lemon character, the path in 30 Rock is she's trying to be this career woman who can have it all. Whereas, yes, the path for Michael Scott in The Office is this man who just desperately wants to be loved by his subordinates and wants to be told he's like the funniest guy in the world. And there is just something very relatable, very sympathetic, but also just very pathetic about that, that he's just so naked about it. I jotted down a couple just quick breakdowns as if it was a scouting report of the characters in The Office. Dwight, just a great nerd character, one of the best nerd characters ever. Obviously, he's a lot more complex than that, but I would say that really is his chief contribution. Jim, one of the great everymen. I cannot possibly think of a guy our age who has not had a phase in their life where they kind of do the Jim face a lot. And some guys I know like still do it. And like it's like how a lot of guys our age also do the Ron Burgundy voice when they're trying to be funny. Like it's just like it's just one of those things you saw as a kid that seeps into your skin. You know,
kind of crazy how much of an everyman Jim was, considering how singular now of a man that John Krasinski is. He's a total Hollywood elite, Amazon Prime.
He brought back silent film. You know, he's something.
Yeah.
But Pam, the Jenna Fish character, she's the prototypical every woman. I think the other side of the coin. And then you have all the great sporting characters we talked about, Oscar and Stanley and Phyllis, and then for us, Creed is our ultimate secret weapon.
Yeah.
I will say this, in terms of some of the characters, they didn't quite figure out a few of them. Ryan, the BJ Novak character, they kind of had him in the early seasons. He has a great villain turn in season 4 when he becomes Michael's boss and replaces Jan. Like, that's wonderful. But kind of the rest of the show, which is over half the show, they just have no clue what to do with him. He goes to Thailand. He's a tech bro. He's a hipster. He's, working all these different jobs now. They just, for a guy who was like a writer on the show, it's just crazy. They never figured it out.
I think they were just kind of using him to do whatever zeitgeisty thing that there was at the time. I will credit him with one of the best lines on the show is when Bob Vance is introducing himself. Bob Vance, Vance Refrigeration. Bob Vance, Vance Refrigeration. Bob Vance, Vance Refrigeration. Bob Vance, Vance Refrigeration. So, what line of work you in, Bob?
Brilliant.
That's
so
one
brilliant.
of the best.
So brilliant.
So, yeah, he definitely has moments, but I agree with you that they never quite cracked what his whole arc would be. His relationship, too, with Kelly. I mean, Mindy Kaling, too. It's, like, hard to forget or hard to remember, like, how, like, lovable and just, like, spunky. And you were just, everybody loved Mindy Kaling. It's what launched her into this huge career that she has now. But again, a lot of the people from The Office that started out as these like, man, that is somebody who I would see on the street, or I could work in an office with that person, and this just launches them to superstardom.
They've just morphed into like Hollywood elite.
Yeah.
We don't have to crap on them, but we all know the situation with how these people have evolved.
Yeah.
Ed Helms as Andy, I think, is another character they didn't quite figure out. I really like him in season 3 when he's working in the Stamford office with Jim, and they kind of, as they welcome him into the office and this kind of rivalry he has with Dwight and the romance with Angela, that's all wonderful. But then he just gets kind of like weird and dark, like as the show goes on, and then him being the boss just doesn't feel right. A lot of these issues kind of just, stem from the fact that Steve Carell left the show. Bringing in James Spader's Robert California was kind of a misstep, and it's just pretty unmemorable, those episodes and that season. But moving on to 30 Rock, as we've said, Liz Lemon, her path is the career gal trying to have it all. And on the other side of the coin with Jack Donaghy, he's kind of the playboy executive trying to have it all, right?
Yeah.
They're both kind of trying to figure out love. The beauty of the show is they don't do the will they, won't they romance thing with them. It's a show about a mentor and a mentee, a man and a woman, a liberal and a conservative. They're just opposites in basically every single way. And it just makes for such good comedy. They just don't go for the cheap thing, the romance or any of that stuff. They just always stick to the comedy with those two at the center of the show.
Yeah, and develops a really touching relationship between them of care. Like they really complete each other, even though they aren't in a romantic relationship.
Yes.
They really fill in the gaps. And I do think it harkens back to kind of a simpler time when you could think of someone who's a like prototypical Republican and a prototypical Democrat, and they have this common ground and they can see eye to eye on stuff. And it does feel harder to imagine that type of a dynamic existing in a sitcom today. But at that time, it was still like charged and kind of edgy and a little bit dangerous, but you believed it, and you believed that there was stuff that they had in common. Like they're both incredibly ambitious people. They both, want the best for their careers. As you said, they're trying to have that as well as a romantic relationship. They offer just such great insights on the other.
And 30 Rock plays with stereotypes very well, as does The Office. But, with the liberal and conservative natures of the Liz and Jack character, with the sort of New York elitism of them all, even with like a Tracy Jordan character as kind of the prototypical black superstar, you know, is like willing to spend his money, and he's kind of foul-mouthed, and he's sort of a diva. And then same thing with the, you know, Jenna character. She's this like vapid blonde Broadway actress, and then, you know, even Pete, the bald, you know, undersexed, you know, overwhelmed producer. Like there's kind of these archetypes, these stereotypes that they're playing with, but they do it in such a fresh and original way. It doesn't feel like punching down or finger waggy or anything. It just lends itself to really good comedy.
Yeah, I mean it's really based in sketch comedy,
Yes,
whereas
yeah.
The Office is more kind of a standard, I would say, show. Like you're kind of aiming for a lot of the same things that even a
Yeah.
drama aims for,
Yeah, that's
hitting sort of emotional notes, stuff like that. 30 Rock just has, you want something big, you want something showy, you want there to be movement, you want there to be laughs every, you know, 10, 15 seconds. You're layering jokes upon jokes. You're hitting multiple patterns at one time. It's a very almost like mathematical type of show in some way.
Yeah.
Like there are just so many like Rube Goldberg machines of comedy that exist in 30 Rock.
Yeah, especially in terms of the joke writing. And in terms of 30 Rock and characters, they never quite figured out. There's sort of this Jimmy Fallon-esque character named Josh that's in the early seasons that they kind of just do away with in favor of Tracy and Jenna. And then they have Danny as a character who replaces him, played by Cheyenne Jackson, who comes along later. And then one character that surprisingly never worked great was Hazel, played by Kristen Schaal. She's kind of Kenneth, the Jack McBrayer character's counterpart. She's the page that replaces him at NBC. And Kristen Schaal is a very funny actress, and they give her pretty good writing. But for some reason, like maybe it's just introducing a character into this, well-worn sitcom premise into like season 6. But yeah, I don't know. Did you ever like the Hazel character?
In theory, yes. In reality, it always felt like it fell short a bit. It's like the cake is baked. You can't add nuts.
Right.
And I think to me, she feels most similar for The Office to the Andy character, where it's just like, this person is so funny, and we have a pretty good idea for a character. You know, maybe we haven't figured everything out. Let's just get him in there. Like, this person is funny. They're gonna make the show funnier, and it's just like any of these things that is a collaborative effort. It doesn't always reward adding more talent if there isn't a defined role for that person to occupy.
Really quick with the guest stars, I think 30 Rock probably, you know, as good as Larry Sanders, as good as Curb, you know, so good at incorporating guest stars. And even when they have huge stars, they write them great roles, whether it's these specific characters or kind of twisted versions of their real life selves. Whereas guest stars always kind of stood out like a sore thumb on The Office. Like when you had Will Ferrell, it's awesome Will Ferrell's on The Office, but he just doesn't kind of work. James Spader just kind of doesn't work. Idris Elba just kind of doesn't work. You kind of break the plane of reality because these characters started off as unknowns, because we let them into our living rooms through our TV sets and we feel like we really got to know them. I don't know. They just kind of don't fit in the world of Scranton as well as they do at the world of the sketch comedy show in New York City, TGS and 30 Rock, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, if you see somebody on The Office that you don't know from The Office, it feels wrong.
Weird, right?
Whereas 30 Rock, the show that they're making inside of the show always has guest stars.
Yes,
So it makes
yes.
sense that there are people coming in, and you can even have somebody like a Paul Giamatti play a not version of himself, play somebody completely
Right.
different. I mean, it's a big enough show to have Matt Damon as a
Yes.
huge character.
Multi-episode arc.
Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, with a television show and a production office and all, writing room, of course all these different people are going to be coming through, people you haven't seen before. Whereas with an office, it's pretty rare when there's a new person in the office and it's like, oh, is our AC getting fixed? Oh, who's this? Is this a family member?
Yeah.
Like, it just feels weird to like let them into the office. I don't know. It's funny how that works. Okay, let's put a bow on it. Better characters, The Office or 30 Rock? What do you think?
I'm going to give it to The Office.
Wow.
I think that the characters of 30 Rock feel closer to the people that played them, whereas The Office, you were kind of creating people out of whole cloth. And I think it's really what you know the character, what you know the show from is these characters, not so much the actors. Whereas I feel like 30 Rock, you think of the actors before you think of the characters.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's true. I will say this, the Office characters, many of them are stemmed from the British Office, particularly the Dwight character, particularly the Jim character, particularly the Pam character, a little bit of Michael Scott, but not quite. So in this regard, I actually kind of like how much 30 Rock plays on reality. So I'm going to give my vote on the characters to 30 Rock. So we're going to get a quick score count here. Is it 3-1? 3-1, 30 Rock Office. Okay. Well, we're going to keep running through categories after the break. Okay, next category. I'm calling this category situation. After all, sitcom stands for situation comedy. So we're kind of analyzing here, what is the funnier situation? And what we're looking at between The Office and 30 Rock is this. With The Office, it's a boring office. With 30 Rock, backstage at a sketch comedy show. Which one's funnier? What do you think?
I'd say the 30 Rock situation seems to be more funny to me. I mean, there's tons of offices all around the world that are nowhere near as funny as The Office is. I mean, it's uproarious, the situation backstage at a, I think the twist too is that it's not exactly Saturday Night Live. It's a rinky-dink version of Saturday Night Live that's getting jerked around by the parent corporation more, whereas Saturday Night Live really can just kind of has carte blanches to do whatever it wants. So it's like take away all of the power, all of the prestige of that show, and what would you have? And I think that is pretty hilarious.
Well, The Office too mines the rinky-dink element for comedy because it's, a failing paper company in the era of Staples and all this stuff. It's kind of funny how both shows have aged a bit because 30 Rock has, so much of 30 Rock is like the television network NBC and its partnership with General Electric and Comcast and things that just kind of sound archaic now that the TV landscape has changed so much. And then same thing with The Office, like the notion of a paper company is beyond archaic. And the fact that like Staples is outselling, that's their big competitor. It's like Staples is gone now, right? We've already had another monster eat up these. So both of the situations I think have aged a bit. A thing I love about both situations is they, like any great comedy, play low stakes for high stakes. With 30 Rock, though, there are actual, like, higher stakes. Like, oh, my goodness, like, someone said a swear word on the air. We're going to get, like, fined or whatever. Or, like, oh, goodness, like, our company is merging, which The Office deals with as well. But this is just on a much more grand scale, isn't it?
Yeah, although at the same time with 30 Rock, the show is so unimportant, that they're making, and that it's just this kind of thing that's keeping them together. Whereas The Office, these are people's, like, so much more of their life, I feel like, happens at The Office. And there's so much of the relationships and figuring out how they're going to live the rest of their lives. Michael Scott, in particular, he's getting older. He kind of finds himself stuck in these bad relationships where it's like, well, can I really leave this woman? How much better is it going to get for me? So there definitely are stakes. And like Jim and Pam, obviously, Jim's watching Pam make her wedding preparations, and all of that stuff feels high stakes, even though it's in this low stakes environment.
It's funny as we talk about The Office, we're talking about basically everything from like seasons 2 through 4. It's funny how when you remember these shows, you always remember kind of the height of the shows, and then it's like, well, there were 5 more seasons after that, weren't there?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's put the pedal to the metal here. What do you think is the better situation, funnier situation, backstage at a sketch comedy show in 30 Rock, or a boring old office in The Office?
I'd probably say 30 Rock has the funnier situation.
I would agree. It's a little more specific, a little more interesting. Obviously, with The Office, there's some more broad appeal, but I think 30 Rock just has the better situation.
I think that's what's so impressive about The Office is how boring the setup is, and yet how much comedy they mine out of all of these things that everybody has, if you've worked in an office, experienced.
Well, hey, you should have given it the vote then. Alas, it's too late. We got to move on. Next category, style of comedy. We've talked about this a little bit, but these shows are very unique in terms of their style of comedy. With The Office, I think you would basically say it's cringe comedy. They want you to sit in the awkwardness. They want you to sit in the silences. The techniques they use are conducive to the mockumentary style with the talking heads, the looks to camera, the breaking of the fourth wall. It feels very, very realistic. And at the time, it was very influential, right?
Totally. I mean, Modern Family uses those techniques without ever saying that it's a documentary.
Right. Parks and Rec as well, and all these shows that have done it. And, a bit on Larry Sanders, they kind of do the mockumentary style. It's a little more polished. On Curb, the pilot episode of Curb is done kind of in a mockumentary style, and then again, it's a little more polished. And then even like Always Sunny in Philadelphia, it's not quite mockumentary, but it's very handheld. It's very kind of punk rock the way they shoot it. They I think they did like multicam setups, even though it's more of a single camera comedy. But yeah, The Office, I mean, pretty Titanic. I mean, I guess you got to kind of give it to the British Office, but pretty Titanic in terms of the way the show is shot and presenting comedy in that fashion, because I think they hired the cinematographer, director of photography from Survivor, and they had him I read the book about The Office, and they had him kind of do it. So all the dirty shots that are through blinds and stuff, a lot of these were techniques they pioneered on Survivor, and it is just funny bringing that gritty realism to a funny Office,
Yeah, and I think with the British Office, the acerbicness of it, there is such a brilliance, but I think what the American Office did so well was they recognized this sort of cult classic or this cult hit comedy show. This could actually be the biggest thing on TV, which I think is it's a pretty huge leap to make.
The style of comedy of 30 Rock, very different. It's more cartoonish, I would say. If The Office is cringe comedy, this is kind of cartoonish comedy. You mentioned the cutaways. That is the brilliant technique that 30 Rock uses. Very Family Guy-ish. You make a reference and then you cut away, show a little clip of something, get the laugh, and then come back right to the scene without losing any momentum. I think 30 Rock, of all the particularly animated shows that use cutaways, no one has ever used them better than 30 Rock.
Family Guy's close.
Family Guy's close, but sometimes their cutaways fall flat, I would say, or just
fair enough,
insanely dark, or just a joke they repeat a bunch, or show Conway Twitty, singing for 3 minutes. Whereas 30 Rock, it was always such a well-earned cutaway that I would kind of give it the nod.
Agreed. I also think 30 Rock, whereas The Office felt more groundbreaking with their breaking of the fourth wall and this mockumentary style, 30 Rock always had this homage to classic comedies and classic sitcoms. There's a lot of I Love Lucy. There's a lot of The Honeymooners. There's a lot of just all of the great comic voices.
Mary Tyler Moore, for sure,
100%. That's a great pull. And obviously, the Gary Shandling Show as well. It was written by people with PhDs in comedy history.
There is, as you watch, almost this arm's distance appreciation you have of 30 Rock. Whereas The Office, you mentioned the word that, God, we got to keep saying pathos that is involved in The Office, where you really feel it, you really empathize. Whereas 30 Rock, you're more just admiring it. There are moments of emotionality that hit you, but for the most part, you're just in awe of the comedy. And I think a lot of that comes down to the writing. I think with 30 Rock, there's just a way higher amount of jokes per minute. Famously, every episode of 30 Rock, even though Tina Fey had kids and everything, the writers would go over to her place and they'd stay up like they did on Saturday Night Live all night, rewriting, and the scripts are just so punched up. They're not punched up to death where it slows down the pace. I mean, they're still hitting the ad breaks. Every episode is still exactly 22 minutes long. But yeah, the writing of 30 Rock, you'd really be hard pressed to find a show where, I mean, it's shocking on 30 Rock if they go more than 3 lines of dialogue without a joke. Literally every line of dialogue, even if it's expository, is a setup for a joke later. It really is incredible. I mean, Arrested Development maybe gets close, but I really feel like 30 Rock stands alone in terms of just the speed and pace of the jokes.
100%. Yeah, totally. And it also has a very sort of New York feel to it, I think is another thing about 30 Rock. But yeah, the writing impeccable.
Lends itself to rewatchability, all those packed jokes. The Office, though, I think had even though it struggled toward the end when Steve Carell left, it had these sort of better long-term story arcs. You really cared about sort of the machinations of the office and who was going to get hired, who was going to get fired, were they going to get merged, who's got the status, who's the boss, all these things. And I think The Office, too, just was a little better with emotionality. Like you said, they approached it at times like a drama, and the way they shot it had that kind of gritty realism, and you invested maybe a little more as a viewer, but at the same time, lots of great jokes, lots of great wordplay, and phenomenal acting to bring it home.
I think too there was a moral component to a lot of the Office episodes that like in these Michael Schur type shows you see a lot, where they're about big concepts and sort of the way that Americans are wrestling with, corporate overtaking or racism or love and jealousy and these types of bigger concepts, where each episode felt like it had a theme that it was going after and circling around and sort of viewing from a variety of different perspectives, whereas 30 Rock just felt more like let's make people laugh.
And you mentioned 30 Rock is extremely New York. The Office then is extremely small town. It's extremely Scranton. It's extremely middle America, whatever you want to subscribe it to. And that really, you could get the comedy from both places as well. All right, let's decide. Better style of comedy, you think 30 Rock or The Office?
Probably for me, the style of comedy, I'm giving it to 30 Rock.
Yeah, I would say so. For me, it's a simple math equation. More laughs equals better style of comedy.
Yeah, that's a impeccable,
good math.
That's what we call a direct proportion right there.
Good. Well, I've so far, I think, pretty much always voted for 30 Rock, but I think in this next one, I'm going to sway to The Office. The next category is broad appeal. Which show had more broad appeal? And to me, it's just pretty clear. The Office could not have more broad appeal. It's even in the title, The Office. Pretty much anyone over the age of 20 has worked in an office more or less like The Office depicted on the show. It's incredibly relatable. And, I mean, you even see it today, right? It's reach with the younger generations, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, you still see people wearing Dunder Mifflin shirts. And whereas 30 Rock requires you to know an address in New York City. I think if you are a fan of 30 Rock, you appreciate that you're sort of like in the know. You're sort of in this cool crowd that knows about comedy, knows about the history of New York City and Saturday Night Live and all of these great celebrities that are showing up. And, that's Brian Williams doing comedy? Like, it was this sort of secret club, whereas The Office is one big tent that everybody can fit in.
Yeah, it's pretty open and shut to me. More broad appeal. Two votes for The Office. Will, 2 votes for The Office. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, let's talk the prime for both shows. Really quick, we'll do a quick score check. Will, it's 7 30 Rock to 3 for The Office. Okay, 7 for 30 Rock, 3 for The Office. Let's see if The Office can mount a comeback. Our next category, the prime. The prime years of The Office. I have them pegged as season 2, 3, and 4. The prime years of 30 Rock, I have pegged as season 2, 3, 4, and 5. Agree, disagree? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, great. Oh, you're not even putting up a fight at all. How could you? These are the prime years, right?
Yeah, 30 Rock takes a little time to figure itself out. I would say The Office has some really great episodes in season 1.
Yes.
I think it gets unfairly maligned for some reason. Like, there's a little bit more edge. There's a little bit more, roughness to it. But there's the, basketball game is in season 1, Diversity Day.
Yeah, killer episodes. It's much more like the British Office. It's much more cutting. It's much more for, British sensibilities than perhaps American sensibilities. I think 30 Rock, go ahead.
I find this season absolutely cracking.
Perfect. Hopefully that can be the breakout clip for the episode. But with 30 Rock, I don't even think season 1's that bad. It's still a very good show. The pilot is incredibly strong of 30 Rock. It's one of the great comedy pilots. I just think when you look back at it in hindsight, you just see seasons 2 through 5 and you're just like, boy, the jokes per minute are just like, it's like 8 jokes per minute versus like 6. And it's like, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's just like once you've had prime 30 Rock and you go back on a rewatch, it's like the first season's great. I'll still rewatch the season 1. Same thing with The Office, but it's like I'm really waiting to get to like seasons 2 through 5. And I think it's just true of most comedy shows. Like first season, it's pretty rare in a comedy show you knock it out of the park in season 1, unless it's The Bear, that hoot of a show. It's hard as a comedy to get it in one season, you know.
Yeah, I think with 30 Rock too, you God bless her, Rachel. What's it? Dratch.
Yeah.
Yes, Rachel Dratch. They were trying to work her into the show, and they do a very she's always playing very sketch comedy type loony characters.
Brilliant conceptually too,
Yes.
to have kind of it's backstage a sketch comedy show, and then you have this like real world sketch comedian playing these different sketch characters from episode to episode.
But it does puncture the reality
Yes,
of the world a little bit, and then once they kind of move on from that concept, I think it allows it to really get going.
I noticed something that occurs with both of these shows when they sort of drop off in terms of their prime and their peak is the main characters meet the love of their life. It just goes to show life is not like it is in the movies. In life, when you meet the love of your life usually gets better. Hopefully some more laughs, maybe a little more stress from time to time. But in television, it's the worst thing you can do. It's the nail in the coffin for a comedy show. In the case of The Office, Michael meets Holly in season 5. And then in the case of 30 Rock, Liz Lemon meets Chris in season 6. And again, the shows are still good, even though they've met the love of their life, but there is that small drop off. The other thing I'll say about The Office is, 30 Rock is Tina Fey's show. It's her baby. The Office, I was kind of weighing like, whose is it? It's Greg Daniels' show. It was so obvious. He's created it. He helped develop it, and he wrote a lot of the great episodes, came back, wrote the finale. But he was the showrunner from season 1 through season 4, and then he left. And that, when you have the showrunner leave, I think it's just a huge, huge drop off. And they had, I think it was like Jennifer Salota, and it was one of the directors, and maybe Paul Lieberstein, who played Toby, and then she left, and then he kind of took over the rest of the show, and it just kind of didn't have the same zhuzh. So I don't know. I think for The Office, it had this issue where the showrunner left. And then for 30 Rock, it's much simpler. Season 6 and 7, they kind of just changed the shooting style. Like they had a new version of HD. It was much more polished. Alec Baldwin started dyeing his hair, and it was just, and he lost a bunch of weight. It was just like, okay, like the show's been on so long, we're kind of seeing like new generations of these actors. Like it's maybe time to wrap it up. Even the show, even though the show is still fantastic, there was this sense of like, maybe it's overstated. It's welcome a little bit,
Yeah, I agree with that. You never really want to see the show get cleaned up. You think about even like The Simpsons or SpongeBob, when they improve the animation, something gets lost.
Something gets lost. I want to talk about peak of peaks, the best episode. I think for The Office, most people would agree it's the dinner party episode. I think it's the first episode that came after the writer's strike, and it's just a total home run. The epitome of cringe comedy, the epitome of a pressure cooker with all your best characters at their most fully realized selves together. And it's just, I could watch that episode. I've already seen it probably, 20 times?
Yeah, probably.
Easily.
Yeah.
And I could watch it 20 more. It just is so, so good.
The world that they build in that apartment, the layers that you get of Michael and Jan's relationship, from the stool at the end of the bed where he sleeps to the microscopic television that he watches, to the dipping of the steak in the red wine, to Jan playing the CD that her assistant recorded that is obviously about an affair that they've had. I mean, you can just rattle off like so many different memorable moments from
Dwight
that episode.
showing up. Yeah.
The ossobuco. She checks the ossobuco. Oh, not even close. They've been there 2 hours. It's the fact that the setup for it is Michael lying to
get everyone to come. Well, the other brilliant thing is The Office is so relatable, working in an office. everyone's been to a dinner party. Everyone understands, cringeworthy behavior at a dinner party. So it's just such a home run of an episode.
Yeah.
When I was looking back at 30 Rock, there's not a single episode that really sticks out. We keep mentioning Paul Giamatti as a guest star. His episode that he guest stars in season 5, When It Rains, It Pours, that's one of the all-time greats. He has a crush on Liz's character and is just kind of using her to win over his other coworker. There's a lot of great episodes. None really stand out to me as much as Dinner Party does for The Office. What would you say in terms of like consistency of quality of the episodes, even though you can't necessarily name the best 30 Rock episode? Do you feel like maybe 30 Rock has more consistency? The Office has more consistency? What would you say in terms of the quality of the episodes?
I'd say the 30 Rock has higher consistency, but The Office has bigger payoffs. Sometimes maybe an Office episode, it's like, that was great, but that was maybe an A- in comparison to some are just like A+++. And they also, are memorable for reasons that go beyond the humor. I mean, the scene of Jim proposing to Pam in the rain at the gas station, that is brilliant, and that's a moment that you'd look forward to for the show for years and years and years. And I can't really think of a corollary to 30 Rock.
Even when you rewatch it, though, these dramatic moments, even where Jim, season 2, he kisses Pam and she says, I can't be with you and stuff. It's heartbreaking, but as you rewatch it, you're almost like looking forward to these moments of tragedy. I think too with The Office, when I've rewatched it, I kind of just don't rewatch really anything past season 5, and then seasons 8 and 9 I've maybe only seen the episodes 3 times total, like when they aired, and maybe once or twice on a rewatch, whereas like seasons 2 through 4 I've just torn through. I mean, we had the DVDs back when they did seasons of DVDs. I remember we got for Christmas, our parents got us an Office trivia game, and we only played it once because we knew the answer to every question. It was just like we've done our homework.
Too easy.
Apparently, Billie Eilish is a big Office fan, knows all Office trivia, and a lot in common with Billie. She's got a brother, I got a brother. She's a singer-songwriter. I'm a singer-songwriter. We both like women. These are things that I have in common with a global superstar,
Yeah, of course. Some other things besides, perhaps.
Yeah, you're sort of my Phineas, I guess is what I'm saying. Anyway, what were we talking about? We were talking about The Office and 30 Rock. 30 Rock, you mentioned the more consistency of the episodes, even if they're not hitting the higher highs of The Office. It just has more sustained excellence. Like 30 Rock, every episode's basically an A from season 1 through season 7. Whereas The Office, you're getting some episodes in the later years that are, C++, right?
Yes, yeah. It's Steve Carell is really just the sun around which the Office, the show, orbits. I mean, it'd be like taking out Donaghy
or Liz from 30. It just doesn't. Excuse me. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I will say this, too. A lot of these Office cast members, like, Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey and Rainn Wilson, all these people, like, do these podcast rounds. And there's a lot of kind of, like, cool behind-the-scenes trivia and stuff they share about The Office. But there's also some kind of, like, revisionist history. I kind of get the sense where I don't really get that with 30 Rock, where, Tina and Alec Baldwin were, like, looking back on the show. There does seem with The Office, like, these people, they get this sense that this new generation has discovered their show, and they're like, I kind of want a piece of that. And understandably, you should be compensated, but I don't feel that sort of desperation with the 30 Rock cast after the show that I feel with the Office cast.
The 30 Rock cast had kind of more stuff going on before and after the show, that this was a part of their great career, but maybe not even necessarily the high point, even though I think, a lot of their best work comes during that. The Office, kind of the other side of the coin of going from an unknown character actor to a megastar for this Office character that you played, is that it became really difficult to see you as almost any other type of person. And even the most talented people from the show, Steve Carell and John Krasinski, have struggled, I think, to find real role that differentiates them from the one that made them so famous.
100%. All right. Better prime, The Office or 30 Rock?
I think I'd give it to The Office.
I agree. I think those seasons 2 through 4 just hit such high highs, and even though 30 Rock had a great prime and not even arguably, definitively more sustained excellence, It kind of just reminds me with The Office, like of The Simpsons, where just The Simpsons seasons 2 through 6 are just so brilliant and as good or better than any sitcom that's ever existed. And whatever, it's been on 30 plus years, and a lot of that has been just ho-hum television. But just, I mean, those 4 or 5 seasons, like, it is what it is. It's perfect television. It's brilliant, iconic television. It's the same thing with The Office. It's just Office seasons 2, 3, and 4. Maybe it's just those 3 seasons, some other episodes outside of that. But that high, it's just unmatched.
I think there's nothing better than broad, appealing art that is also executed at the highest level possible.
Yes.
And that's really what The Office was during its prime.
Yes, absolutely. It's Steven Spielbergian, isn't
Yes.
it? You know,
Yes.
Popular art executed beautifully. All right, next category, rewatchability. I didn't take too many notes on this. I thought we'd just kind of freewheel it. It's tough. I when I wrote it down, I kind of couldn't have ideas one way or another. It felt like a tie. You and I watched pretty much from the beginning, 30 Rock and The Office, all the episodes when they aired. And then we had Comcast, so they would air, and then they would come out on demand, and we would watch it basically the same week on demand. So we'd basically watch them twice when they came out. And then we owned all the seasons. So we burned through them countless times on all the seasons, right? And so we've, start to finish, watched both shows easily 5 or 6 times. Easily. With The Office, some of those episodes, it's in the double digits. But and 30 Rock, same thing. It's probably closer, more full watches, like 7 or 8, and then a lot of episodes in like the double digits. So we've put in the time. Which one to you would you say is more rewatchable?
I like 30 Rock more because you can pop in at pretty much any point and you don't have to worry about, oh, wait, what was going on with these 2 characters at that time? I think The Office is maybe a more satisfying rewatch all the way through.
It's a little more linear in terms of how the plot develops.
Yes.
And you're really invested, especially in like when there's like the merger between the branches in season 3. You're really like invested week to week, like, oh, who's going to, earn Michael's favor and who's going to, finagle their way and who's going to be the boss and all this stuff. You really are invested in like the Office politics, whereas you don't really have that as much with 30 Rock.
No, and I think with rewatchability, you're talking about, it's like, what do I want to just throw on an episode of 2 of before I go to bed? And for me, that's been 30 Rock, although both shows we have watched so many times that I haven't seen either of them in a little while, just because I know like almost every line before it's coming, and the lack of surprise is sad. It's one of those things, eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. I wish they could Men in Black wipe me of my viewing experience.
Combining a couple flicks there.
Yeah.
You want both treatments. You want the surgery to remove your memories, and you want the Men in Black treatment in case the surgery doesn't take.
That's how deep in my brain these episodes are. They require 2 sci-fi treatments.
I will disagree a little bit. Even though The Office is a little more linear in terms of how the plot develops, I do think you can pop in at any time, and it's pretty awesome because the characters are so finely tuned, and if you've rewatched it enough, you know where you are in the plot anyway. 30 Rock, like Arrested Development, is so joke-dense that truly every time you watch it, you discover a new joke. So that is very rewarding. However, with The Office, maybe you don't discover a new joke, but you do discover a new funny thing, whether it's a look, whether it's a line said under somebody's breath, whether it's, oh, I didn't even understand that wordplay, or, oh, that was a callback to this, right? I do think both, there are benefits to rewatching them. But gosh, if I have to plant my flag in one, I probably would say 30 Rock is a little more rewatchable for me.
There you go. Both of us going to 30
think?
Rock.
All right, so 2 votes for 30 Rock.
Yeah.
All right, we've come to it. The final category, it deals with time. It is timelessness. Which show is more timeless? With The Office, I wrote this down. I wrote that it's probably the best and most complete example of the, mockumentary. It's had this second life on Netflix, which adds to its timelessness. Although, do people, like younger generations, this whole notion of like background television and stuff, which I'm always kind of dialed in you as well when we watch TV. This notion of a background show, does that diminish it a bit, or does that lend itself to kind of its broad appeal and timelessness?
I think it does. The fact that you don't have to engage with it on such a intense level that you can watch it and go away from it, especially if you've seen it a couple of times. You're like, oh, I know what's going on here. And it's like the more different ways that you can access something, I think, lead it to timelessness and sort of saying embedded in the, culture. Whereas with 30 Rock, I think it was something that did demand your undivided attention, as well as it's like a dead style of show about a dead style of show that references a bunch of shows that people don't really watch anymore, despite being extremely important to American culture. So I do think that 30 Rock is more of its time, whereas even though things have changed, even though there wouldn't really be a paper company anymore, the dynamics that are captured in The Office are very eternal.
I think The Office, we mentioned people still wearing Dunder Mifflin shirts. That lends itself to its timelessness as well. This show also made all these people like commercial stars. Like you see Steve Carell and John Krasinski selling the Italian coffee, and you see all these Office people in like AT&T commercials and stuff. And obviously 30 Rock, these actors have been in commercials and done branding as well. But I think with The Office and this sort of second life it's had on Netflix, it's really added to its timelessness.
But the characters from 30 Rock aren't playing versions of themselves,
right?
Or aren't playing the versions of the characters from 30 Rock. Whereas with The Office, with Steve Carell and John Krasinski, their most recent, Lavasso ad is referencing the characters they once played.
Right.
Like John Krasinski sort of gives a knowing wink at the camera. Steve Carell's being sort of wacky.
Bumbling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and I think it is also so funny with those two guys that they became these sort of dashing silver foxes.
Yes,
that was their reinvention as they got older, because they had this sort of, again, everyman sort of winsome charm. I don't think anyone really looked at Steve Carell as like a hot dude.
Even John Krasinski in these early seasons is just all right looking, and they both, they have aged into these very dapper, dashing silver foxes.
Right.
It is pretty funny.
Which is never good for comedy. You can't be extremely dapper. How many dapper comedians do you know?
I do not know many dashing men in their 50s who make me die laughing. I don't know a ton. I don't know a ton in general, but many that I do know don't make me laugh. With 30 Rock, it is arguably the best written comedy show of all time. I'd put it up there with any of them. I Love Lucy, The Simpsons, Honeymooners, any of them. Seinfeld, Curb, whatever, any of them, even though Curb's not really written. In a way it is. I think there's enough writing in Curb to justify it. But I think what goes against 30 Rock's ability to be timeless is what it skewers in terms of NBC's relationship with General Electric and Comcast, and just these series of references that are just by the day growing more and more irrelevant. And I don't know, to me, even now, like 10 plus years after these shows have ended, 30 Rock does feel a little forgotten. Like, the people who watched it and the people who like it really love it, but I don't, I can't really imagine many people under 20 talking about 30 Rock and loving 30 Rock. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a cherished memory for people of a certain age, but I just don't see it getting rediscovered by people in Gen Z or younger generations like The Office has, and like even like Friends has, where I think there's, again, that's another show that, even though it's of its era, it does kind of capture these very timeless dynamics where 30 Rock feels like it's very much about a very singular place and time.
Although for everyone involved, 30 Rock and somewhat The Office, it was really their high point of their career. Tina Fey was obviously great on SNL, but 30 Rock's her masterpiece. Alec Baldwin's been in good movies, but he never delivered lines better than he did as Jack Donaghy. And, Tracy Morgan was in some great sketches, but, he is Tracy Jordan, right? He played that version of himself just so masterfully. I think, though, it's pretty clear in terms of timelessness, it's The Office, right?
Yeah.
2 votes for The Office, Will, which means we now have a final tally. He's going to do some quick math for us, And it's got kind of close. I think The Office made a little bit of a comeback there. I'm curious to see what happens. You got a final score for us, sir?
9-7 for 30 Rock.
30 Rock wins 9-7. Pretty close. Pretty close. I don't think most people would agree that 30 Rock is the better show, but we certainly feel that way after all that scientific research we just did.
I always thought of myself more as a 30 Rock guy than an Office guy.
Yes.
If that makes sense. I think it was sort of
yeah.
a sort of in the know. I liked being in that 30 Rock club.
For me, it kind of reminds me of The Office recently with my experience seeing The Hangover in theaters. I remember seeing The Hangover in theaters kind of the first week and just thinking, man, this is one of the great comedies. This movie made me laugh so hard. It's familiar but different. The performances are great. It's such a wild ride, and it is hilarious. And then everyone saw The Hangover, and everyone's quoting The Hangover, and everyone's talking about The Hangover, and it just doesn't have that charm it once had when I first saw it. And it's kind of like with The Office. When you saw it when it aired, and I get if you're younger, you weren't around when it aired, you know, you're not privy to this. But when you watched it as like season 3 and not many people were really watching it and it was really getting good, and season 4, it came back after the writer's strike and they're doing like hour-long episodes and it's really, really good and it's just better than ever, and Jim and Pam are starting to get together. But then it kind of hits season 5 and it's airing after the Super Bowl, and it's season 6 and 7 and you read stories about contract negotiations and Steve Carell's leaving, and then it's who's going to replace him, and then Rainn Wilson and Ed Elms, they're no Steve Carell, and it just goes on and then this Second Life now is this sort of background show. It soured me on The Office a little bit, and when I go back and rewatch it, I still have those great childhood memories of putting in the discs from our season DVDs, and let's do disc 3 today. That's got a great 4 episodes on it, and just it brings me back to those times. It's very nostalgic, but for me now, there's a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. It's just like, again, all the revisionist history on these podcasts. I see Rainn Wilson talking about, I should have been a movie star, and I was bitter about not being a movie star. And it's just like, let's just stop talking about The Office and let's just let it be. And that's the beauty, I think, of 30 Rock, is the cast and crew have just let it be. And maybe it won't be as timeless, I think, but for us, better sitcom.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is too many people touched it.
Yes,
too many
yes.
fingerprints or smudged it up. And
it's the Blarney Stone.
The Blarney Stone, and 30 Rock is still in a slightly more pristine condition.
Yes, let's keep our grubby paws off of it, world. All right, we're going to do a quick break. Then I got some delicious Office and 30 Rock trivia for you. You won't want to miss it. All right, 30 Rock has been crowned the better of the two sitcoms versus The Office. But, yes, you're interrupted.
It's been crowned the Flynn brother favorite.
Sorry, yes. This is not a definitive be-all, end-all. Just the opinion of a couple of fellas, that's all. Of Billie Eilish and her brother Phineas. All right, let's get into some trivia questions. I jotted these down. I am such a 30 Rock and Office fan that I really didn't have to do much research for this. I kind of just knew these off the dome, and I did have to Google one thing to get word for word. We'll get to that question later. But I'm curious to see how you'll do on this. I'm guessing you'll get about 50%.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think
You think I'm going to fail this exam?
You will fail this exam that I did not need to study for at all. Okay, first question. Steve Carell was nominated for a Best Lead Actor in a Comedy Series Emmy 6 times. Over the course of his nominations, he lost to 4 different actors. Who were they?
Whoa. I just really thought it was Baldwin every time.
Uh-oh. You got 3 more to go. Alec Baldwin is 1. I'll give you some hints if you're helpless.
Big Bang Theory.
Yes.
What is his name?
What's
Jim Parsons.
Jim Parsons. He is the second actor.
Which Big Bang Theory I also think is responsible for fully killing the laugh track sitcom. They certainly squeezed every last drop out of that lemon.
Say what you will, if you think Baldwin deserved the Emmys over Steve Carell, that's totally arguable. Jim Parsons did not deserve the Emmys over Steve Carell.
That I would push back against.
All right, so 2 more actors. I'll give you a hint on one of them. One of them is Steve. You're gonna get this, obviously. Steve Carell's British counterpart.
Gervais.
Ricky Gervais playing Andy in Extras. He won in one of the early years of The Office.
Okay.
Extras, an unbelievable
Oh, my
sitcom,
goodness.
also inspired by Larry Sanders, as was the British version of The Office. You must see Extras if you have not seen Extras. All right, and the last one.
No clue.
Early, kind of mid-2000s. He was an obsessive-compulsive detective.
By God. Tony Shalhoub.
Tony Shalhoub
as
for
Adrian Monk.
As Adrian Monk.
I
in the
guess.
show
I mean, it
Monk.
was a comedy, but
Oh, yes,
there was
yeah.
certainly
There was some darkness,
heavy
his,
dose of drama.
His late wife in Monk, I'm spacing on the name of the actress, Melora Hardin, maybe, was who played Jan on The Office. Remember that? Yeah.
Boy, two different fellas.
Yes, two different fellas, two different roles for her.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, very good. I'll give you a half credit on that one. Will, would you mind keeping score on how he does? Let's give him half credit. He got 2 out of 4. That's not bad. Okay. Both The Office and 30 Rock ended their run in 2013. Which show ended first?
30 Rock.
That is correct. 30 Rock's finale aired in January. The Office's finale aired in May. Very good job on that, buddy. All right, you got 1.5 out of 2 so far.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Not bad.
Okay. This next question involves the greatest line in 30 Rock history. This is the one I had to Google. In season 6's episode, Today You Are a Man, Tracy and Jenna are hired to work at a bar mitzvah, and the dad wants them to dress up and act like Transformers. They refuse, so the dad blackmails them. He tells Tracy, quote, "I'd hate for people to realize that your charity is just a front that has done nothing to make this country safer from Godzilla attacks." What is Tracy's response word for word?
If anything, I've made the situation worse.
If anything, I've increased the likelihood.
That is unbelievable.
The stupidness yet brilliance of that premise is just so brilliant.
You can feel the hours that went into it.
Oh my God.
His charity, his charity is a front. Okay, his charity is a front. What is it a front for?
Yes.
And then what is his response to? I mean, just like
preventing Godzilla attacks. That's hilarious. And then it's like, what would he have needed to do to increase the likelihood? And then also the word choice of "if anything" before that is just so brilliant. And then, one of the great comedy line deliverers of all time, Tracy Morgan.
That is what 30 Rock really had, was just people who could deliver the heck out of lines and impeccably written lines.
I'm going to give him half credit on that. He was very close. Half credit on that. Very good.
I captured the spirit.
You captured, If anything, I've increased the likelihood. Okay, next question. Before Jane Krakowski, hey, I pronounced it correctly, who was cast as Jenna in 30 Rock?
The aforementioned Rachel Dratch.
I figured you'd get this one since you mentioned her. Yes, Rachel Dratch was Jenna. The network made Tina Fey recast the role, I think, for the better. Rachel Dratch was just kind of too similar to the Liz Lemon character.
Yes, in looks as well.
Yes,
like,
it helps to have brunette versus blonde. It helps to have kind of the vapid blonde actress stereotype against the brunette writer. It just, they mined so much comedic gold from it. It's a shame Rachel Dratch wasn't able to be part of the show long term, but overall, best thing for the show for sure.
Yeah.
All right, that's a tough one. Creators and writers of the British version of The Office, Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant, they only wrote one episode of the U.S. version of The Office. What was the episode? And it's not the pilot, because the pilot was basically just word for word taken, developed by Greg Daniels, that just moved over to the U.S. version. What is the one episode that Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant wrote for the U.S. version of The Office? If you can't get the exact title, you can hopefully describe it.
Was it Diversity Day?
It's not Diversity Day. I'll give you
Diversity Day.
3 stabs at it if you'd like.
That was my
It's
guess.
from season 3, if that helps at all.
I don't have it. I don't know.
I
do know that they did write one, but I don't know the episode.
It involves Prison Mike.
The
episode is called The Convict. So yeah,
that
it's
is
pretty
such a
great.
great one.
It's pretty great going back and rewatching that episode, understanding it was written by them, because it's got pretty sharp teeth. it's pretty hilarious. Ricky Gervais's writing is so specific, and you can really hear it in Steve Carell's lines in that episode. He's almost writing as if it was David Brent.
Yes,
it's
Prison Mike is a character that
Yes.
Ricky Gervais would do. He, gets kind of a lot of flack for his stand-up and sort of his opinions. He's one of the great creators of television of all time,
Yeah,
Ricky Gervais.
he is. 100%. He's one of the great TV comedy writers of all time. I would say, I think we've mentioned this before, the best ones in the last 25 years, you got to mention Tina Fey, you got to mention Larry David, and I think right up there with them, Ricky Gervais.
There you go.
All right, 2 more questions. In the Office episode, as we've mentioned, the best one, Dinner Party, Jan plays a song off an album recorded by her assistant, Hunter. You mentioned this earlier on the podcast. What is the name of the album?
It is a pun on Hunter.
It is. I need the name of the album. It's only 2 words. It's him kind of against, like, I think a brick wall or something. He's kind of in the squatted position with his hands folded.
Hunter Gathers.
Nope, it's not that
No.
one. It's very simple. Very simple.
Hunter. I don't have it.
It is.
You got
It
me.
is very simply The Hunter.
Oh my god.
And of course, he has an affair with Jan, so there's this loaded
Of
double
course.
meaning. His name's
Yes.
Hunter, he hunts her.
Now,
you know.
I remember. I think it's like it's like Beck or somebody in that like milieu actually
Yes,
recorded it,
yes,
and they
that's
recorded
right,
it
yeah.
as a demo. But the demo was so funny that they just used it. Like they were gonna like, we'll polish it up for you if you wanted to. Like, don't touch it. It's perfect, and it is.
That song playing over the end of the episode as the couples are all going their separate ways. And again, it's such a silly,
Yeah.
sappy song. And, it's like Andy and Angela go out for ice cream, gives her a little kiss, and she slams the ice cream on his car and just...
No, he licks the ice cream. He takes one
Oh,
lick
right,
of ice
right,
cream.
Right. And just like, it's just such a brilliant end to the
Yeah.
episode. It's so great.
Yeah.
It's like, isn't the line like, but one night, you made everything all right.
Yeah,
Sounds
it's like you
a-
took me by the hand, you made me a man. I mean, these are not subtle.
This could be a Solon
Yeah,
song,
yeah.
for God's sakes. All right, last trivia question for you. I need this one word for word. You know how persnickety I am.
I do.
I need you to sing the lyrics of the most famous 30 Rock cutaway. Sing the lyrics to Werewolf Bar Mitzvah.
Werewolf bar mitzvah, spooky, scary, boys becoming men, men becoming wolves.
Ding, ding, ding. He got it. Boys becoming men, men becoming wolves. I believe it took him 3 days to set up the set for that cutaway, and my God, was it worth it. So brilliant. Tracy's ill-fated rip-off of Michael Jackson's Thriller. Absolutely
my
brilliant.
God.
How many points did he get, Will? He did okay. He got 4. Wow, including the halves and everything. All right, so 4 out of, let's see, how many did I do? 7? Okay, good. That's not bad.
Well,
but
I beat the over/under.
you beat my 50%. Hey,
Yeah,
buddy,
give
good
that
job.
tell FanDuel to give out that same game parlay if you were
Yeah,
working that with the weekend's football action.
Yeah, I'll get right on that. Please subscribe, comment, and leave a rating. Send questions, comments, or big idea suggestions to our business email, flynnbrospod@gmail.com. Thank you to our producer, Will Slade, and we'll see you next time on the Flynn Brothers Podcast. Buddy, take care.
No, buddy, you take care.